The millionaire welcomes a black beggar and finds a secret that can change everything forever. Arthur Finch, Mr. Westchester himself, worth millions, suits sharper than a tack, but inside, empty, like a damn hollow tree. Scotch nights bled into gray mornings. This one, he was cruising, somewhere south of his usual haunts, downright gritty. Then he saw her, Helen, huddled in a doorway, black, face etched with something deeper than just the cold. Wasn't his problem. He knew it. But he stopped, offered her a ride. "Get in," he rasped, the words. Rough. He shouldn't have brought her back to the mansion, to that sterile kitchen. But there she was, sipping coffee, and he was seeing past the threadbare coat, past the color of her skin. Something in her eyes. God, it was sadness. Real sadness. "Luke," she whispered, finally. "A son. Foster care." That name Luke hit Arthur like a punch to the gut. He didn't know why. Later, getting ready for Veronica's charity gala. Veronica, always perfect, always watching. He couldn't shake Helen's face. Couldn't shake the name. Luke. Veronica noticed. She always noticed. A flicker of something in his eyes. Something she didn't like. The gala was a blur of champagne and fake smiles. Then came the whisper. Some jackass friend of Veronica's, dropping a little bomb about that thing Arthur did years ago. Veronica's eyes went cold. Back home, after the photographers and fake friends, she cornered him. The Ice Queen was pissed. "I know about Helen," she hissed, barely audible above the hum of the city. "And Luke, I know everything." The air crackled. He stared. His part a lead weight in his chest. What did she know? And what would she do with it? This was war. And Veronica Finch always played to win. "Ei, antes de continuarmos com essa história incrível, preciso te fazer uma alerta importante. Muitos inscritos têm relatado que o YouTube removeu suas inscrições sem aviso. Dá só uma conferida rápida no botão vermelho aí embaixo para garantir que você ainda está inscrito no canal. Não quero que você perca nenhum conteúdo exclusivo que vem por aí. E já que você está aí, deixa aquele like poderoso que me ajuda muito com o algoritmo. E me conta nos comentários de qual cidade você está assistindo. Adoro conhecer cada pessoa incrível que faz parte dessa comunidade. Sua participação faz toda a diferença. Vamos interagir. The air crackled. He stared, his heart a lead weight in his chest. What did she know? And what would she do with it? This was war, and Veronica Finch always played to win. "Helen is your sister, Arthur," she spat, the words like shards of ice. "And Luke is your son." He swayed. The room swam. His sister? A son he never knew. It couldn't be. Veronica watched him crumble, a cruel satisfaction twisting her lips. "Years ago, Arthur, before me, before the money really flowed. You were different then, carefree, and you met Sarah, Helen's real name. You were young, foolish. You didn't stick around when she got pregnant." The scotch churned in his stomach. He remembered Sarah, a summer romance, a girl with eyes that could swallow you whole. He'd been so caught up in making his fortune, he'd walked away. Clean break, or so he thought. "She didn't want your money," Veronica continued, relentless. "She wanted you, but you were gone. She raised Luke alone, worked her fingers to the bone." He pictured Helen, Sarah, huddled in that doorway, her eyes, that sadness. It wasn't just poverty. It was a lifetime of regret. His regret. He lurched forward, grabbing Veronica's arm. "Why? Why are you telling me this now?" Her smile was pure venom. "Because I can't have children, Arthur. You know that." And the thought of you leaving your empire to some charity case is unbearable, especially when you have a perfectly suitable wife right here. He shoved her away. You're insane! Am I? She purred. She pulled a small silver pistol from her evening bag. The damn thing was pearl-handled, like something out of an old movie. He froze. He'd seen that look in her eyes before. It was the look she gave when she was closing a deal, crushing a competitor. Utter ruthlessness. Veronica, don't be stupid. Think about what you're doing. His voice was a croak. She raised the gun, her hand steady. Think about what you did, Arthur. Think about Sarah. Think about Luke. And think about who's going to be running Finch Enterprises. A deafening crash from the hallway ripped through the tense silence, the sound of shattering glass. Veronica flinched, her eyes darting towards the door. Helen stood there, framed in the doorway, her face a mask of fury. In her hand, she held a heavy crystal vase, shards of glass clinging to her threadbare coat. "Get away from him, you witch!" she screamed, her voice raw with emotion. Veronica's face twisted with rage. "You! How dare you!" Without hesitation, Helen hurled the vase. It struck Veronica square in the face. The impact a sickening thud. Veronica crumpled to the floor, unconscious. The silver pistol clattered onto the marble. Arthur stared, speechless at Helen. She stood there, breathing heavily, the vase a bloody weapon in her hand. Their eyes met. And in that moment, everything changed. Everything he thought he knew about his life, about himself, shattered like that vase. Was she capable of murder to protect him? Then, a new voice, younger, filled with panic. "Mom, what's going on?" Luke stepped into the hallway, his eyes wide with fear. He looked from his mother to Veronica's crumpled form on the floor, then finally to Arthur. Recognition dawned in his eyes. It wasn't just surprise, it was something else. Resentment? Hope? "Who is he, Mom?" Luke asked, his voice trembling. "Why is he here?" "Who is he, Mom?" Luke asked, his voice trembling. "Why is he here?" Helen looked at Arthur, then back at her son. He's a friend." "Luke, just a friend." Arthur wanted to shout, to tell Luke the truth. But Veronica was stirring, a groan escaping her lips. The silver pistol lay inches from her hand. Suddenly, sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder, closer. Someone must have called the cops. This was spiraling out of control, fast. "We need to go," Arthur said, grabbing Helen's arm. "Now." Luke pulled away from his mother. "Go where? What's going on, Mom? Tell me the truth." Helen's eyes filled with tears. "There's no time, honey. Just trust me." She looked at Arthur, a silent plea in her eyes. They bolted, leaving Veronica unconscious on the floor, the sirens closing in. They ran through the mansion, out the back door, into the night. They didn't stop running until they reached Arthur's car, a sleek black Bentley parked far from the house. Arthur floored it, tires squealing as they sped away. Luke sat in the back, silent, his face a mask of confusion and fear. Helen stared straight ahead, her knuckles white as she gripped the seat. "Where are we going?" Luke finally asked, his voice barely a whisper. Arthur glanced in the rear-view mirror. "Somewhere safe. Somewhere Veronica can't find us." He drove for hours, finally pulling into a run-down motel on the outskirts of the city. It wasn't much, but it was better than nothing. Inside the dingy room, the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Luke paced back and forth, his frustration boiling over. "I deserve to know what's happening. Who is this guy? Why were you fighting with that woman?" Helen sighed, running a hand through her tangled hair. It's complicated, Luke. More complicated than you can imagine. Arthur stepped forward. I can explain. He looked at Luke, searching for the right words. Your mother and I, we knew each other a long time ago. Knew each other? Is that it? Is that why you're suddenly playing hero? Luke spat, his eyes blazing with anger. Arthur winced. He deserved that. Suddenly, there was a sharp knock at the door. Not a polite knock. A hard, insistent pounding. Arthur tensed. Who is it? A voice, cold and hard, echoed through the thin door. Open up, Arthur. We know you're in there. It wasn't the cops. It was Veronica's people. She had found them. Arthur grabbed Helen and Luke, pulling them towards the back window. We have to go. Now. As they climbed out the window, a single gunshot rang out, shattering the silence. Arthur felt a searing pain in his shoulder. He stumbled, but kept running, dragging Helen and Luke with him. They burst out of the motel room, and a man appeared. It wasn't one of Veronica's goons. It was a man that Arthur had not seen in many years. Hello, Arthur, the man said with a cruel smirk. I'm afraid Veronica can no longer get what she wanted. The man turned to Luke. I'm your father. Arthur Finch did not exist. He was only a persona I created. Arthur crumpled onto the pavement. This can't be happening, he gasped, the words catching in his throat. He looked at Luke, his eyes pleading for understanding. But all he saw was a chilling emptiness. The man turned to Helen. You were always a problem. I thought that Arthur Finch was going to give you everything you wanted. It's time that I take care of you, he said as he raised his arm and shot Helen in the chest. As he pointed the gun at Luke, sirens wailed as police cars surrounded the motel. As he pointed the gun at Luke, sirens wailed as police cars surrounded the motel. Hello, Arthur, the man said with a cruel smirk. I'm afraid Veronica can no longer get what she wanted. The man turned to Luke. I'm your father. Arthur Finch did not exist. He was only a persona I created. Arthur crumpled onto the pavement. This can't be happening, he gasped, the words catching in his throat. He looked at Luke, his eyes pleading for understanding, but all he saw was a chilling emptiness. The man turned to Helen. You were always a problem. I thought that Arthur Finch was going to give you everything you wanted. It's time that I take care of you, he said as he raised his arm and shot Helen in the chest. She crumpled right there. No time to scream. Just gone. Luke went ballistic. A roar ripped from his throat, a sound no kid should ever make. He lunged at the guy, all fists and fury. You bastard! You killed her! But the man just backhanded him, sent him flying. Luke landed hard, didn't move. Arthur, he couldn't breathe, couldn't see straight. Helen, gone. Luke, out cold. This thing, this stranger, claiming to be Luke's father, was standing over them, a gun still smoking. Then, it happened. A police officer, young, fresh-faced, rushed forward, gun drawn. Freeze! Police! The man didn't hesitate. He turned, fired. The officer went down. And then, sirens everywhere, shouting, chaos. Suddenly, a woman's voice cut through the noise, clear and sharp as a knife. Dad, stop this! Everyone froze. All eyes turned to a figure emerging from one of the police cars. Veronica. But different. No Ice Queen anymore. Just broken and wearing a police uniform. Veronica? Arthur croaked. His brain struggling to catch up. She ignored him, walked straight to the man holding the gun. "You have to stop, please." He looked at her, a flicker of something in his eyes. Then it was gone, replaced by cold, hard rage. "You betrayed me, Veronica. You chose him over family." "I chose what's right, Dad. You can't keep doing this. It has to end." "End?" He laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. "It's just beginning." He raised the gun again, this time aiming at Veronica. "No!" Arthur screamed, pushing himself to his feet. But he was too late. Veronica didn't even flinch. Just closed her eyes. Then another shot. But it didn't come from Veronica's father. It came from Luke. Lying on the ground, barely conscious, he'd somehow managed to reach the fallen officer's gun. And he'd shot the man who claimed to be his father. The man stumbled, clutching his chest. Then he fell. Hard. Silence, except for the sirens and the sobs coming from Veronica. Arthur just stood there, frozen. Helen dead. Veronica, a cop. Luke, a killer. His head was spinning. Everything he thought he knew, gone. Who was this family? Who was he? What the hell was going on? Then Luke spoke, his voice weak, barely audible. He wasn't my father, was he?" Veronica looked at Luke, tears streaming down her face. She walked over to him, knelt beside him. "No, Luke," she whispered. "He wasn't. Your father, your real father, was a good man. A man this bastard ruined." She looked at Arthur, her eyes filled with a mixture of pain and something else, something he couldn't quite decipher. "And you, Arthur," she said, her voice cold. "You have no idea what you've stumbled into." What did she mean? What hadn't he been told? And why did a picture of his birth certificate keep floating in his mind? "And you, Arthur," she said, her voice cold. "You have no idea what you've stumbled into." What did she mean? What hadn't he been told? And why did a picture of his birth certificate keep floating in his mind? He looked at Veronica, really looked at her. The cop uniform, the broken expression, it didn't fit. None of this did. "What are you talking about?" He finally managed. His voice was a croak. She didn't answer right away, just stared at him, like she was trying to decide something. Something big. "Your name, Arthur," she said slowly. "It's not Finch. It's Wagner." Wagner? The name felt alien, wrong. "Wagner? What the hell are you—" "The Finches," Veronica interrupted. "They weren't your parents, Arthur. They were caretakers. You were adopted." He laughed, a short, bitter sound. "Adopted? That's insane." "Is it?" she challenged. "Think about it, Arthur. The Finches never treated you like their son. They always kept you at arm's length. The money, the power, it was all yours, but it was never personal." He thought about it. Christ, she was right. The cold dinners, the distant smiles, the feeling, always, of being an outsider looking in. "Who were my real parents?" he asked, dread creeping into his voice. Veronica hesitated. Then she took a deep breath. "Your mother was Sarah. Helen." He stared at her blank. "Helen? My mother? But that would mean—" "Luke," Veronica finished for him. "Luke is your brother, Arthur, not your son. Your brother." The world tilted. He stumbled back, grabbing onto the side of a police car. Luke, his brother? Helen, his mother? Everything he believed, it was all a lie. But it got worse. "And your father, Arthur," Veronica said, her voice barely a whisper. "Your father was—" Suddenly, Luke groaned. He was coming to. Veronica turned her attention to him, kneeling beside him, checking him over. "Easy, Luke," she said softly. "Take it easy." Arthur swayed. He needed to know. He had to know. Veronica, tell me, who was my father? She looked back at him, her face a mask of pain. Your father, Arthur, was Charles Finch. The world exploded. Charles Finch. The man he'd known as his father was actually his real father. He'd slept with his own mother. He'd almost killed his own brother. This was beyond messed up. He couldn't breathe, couldn't think. He needed to get out of there, needed to run, far away. He turned and started to walk away, but Veronica grabbed his arm. Arthur, wait. There's more you need to know. But he couldn't listen. He couldn't take it anymore. He ripped his arm away from her and started running, not knowing where he was going, not caring. All he knew was he had to get away from this nightmare. As he ran, he could hear Veronica shouting after him, but he didn't stop. He couldn't. He had to find out the truth. About everything. But how? And who could he trust? He glanced back one last time. Veronica was still standing there, watching him. And in her eyes, he saw something that chilled him to the bone. It wasn't just sadness, it was fear. Fear for him. And then he understood. The worst was yet to come. The truth he was running from, it was just the beginning. He'd uncovered the lie. But now, he had to figure out why the Finches took him. What their plan always wants for him. He couldn't imagine what it could be, but he knew, deep down, it wouldn't be pretty. He couldn't imagine what it could be, but he knew deep down, it wouldn't be pretty. He ran like hell. The motel, the bodies, Veronica, it was all a blur. His head pounded. His shoulder throbbed. He didn't know where he was going. Just away. Away from the sirens, the lies, the everything. He ended up near the docks. The smell of salt, the cries of the gulls, it was almost calming. Almost. He sat down on the crate, trying to catch his breath. Wagner. Not Finch. Luke, his brother. Charles Finch, his father. Helen, his mother. It was like some twisted soap. Opera. Only this was real. A cold hand gripped his shoulder. He jumped, ready to fight. It was Veronica. What do you want? He spat, yanking his arm away. She didn't say anything, just looked at him, her eyes still red and swollen. There's more, she said finally, her voice barely a whisper. Much more. He closed his eyes. God, he didn't want to hear it. But he knew he had to. The Finches, she began. They didn't just adopt you. They needed you. Needed me for what? He asked, dread building in his chest. Veronica hesitated. This was it. The big one. He could feel it. Charles, she said. Charles wasn't capable of having children. He was sterile. Arthur stared at her. What are you saying? You, she continued, her voice trembling. You weren't Charles's son, Arthur. Not biologically. He shook his head. But you said... I lied, she interrupted. I had to. He clenched his fists. Who was my real father then? If it wasn't Charles, who the hell was it? Veronica took a deep breath. Your father, she said, her voice thick with emotion, was Thomas Blackwood. He blinked. Thomas Blackwood? The name sounded familiar, but then it hit him like a punch to the gut. Thomas Blackwood, the Blackwood fortune, bigger than the Finches, older, more powerful, and his mortal enemy. The Blackwoods and the Finches had been locked in a bitter feud for generations. Corporate espionage, political maneuvering. It was a constant war. And now, he was smack in the middle of it. Blackwood? He repeated, his voice hoarse. I'm a Blackwood? Veronica nodded, tears streaming down her face again. Charles, He couldn't have children. He wanted an heir. He wanted to beat Blackwood, so he arranged it. He took you, Arthur, from Blackwood, when you were just a baby. Helen, Sarah, she didn't know. She never knew. He staggered back, his head spinning. He'd been a pawn all along, a weapon, a Blackwood raised by a Finch to destroy himself? But why? He asked, his voice cracking. Why tell me now? Veronica looked at him, her eyes filled with despair. Because, she said. Thomas Blackwood knows. He's known for years. His blood ran cold. And, she continued, he's coming for you, Arthur. He's coming to take back what's his. The pieces fell into place. The attack at the motel. The shooter claiming to be Luke's father. It wasn't about Luke. It wasn't about Helen. It was about him. Blackwood was cleaning house, getting rid of the loose ends, the people who knew too much. He'd been so busy unraveling one lie, he'd walked right into another. A bigger one, a deadlier one. Then a glint of light flashed from a nearby rooftop, a sniper scope. Veronica saw it too. She grabbed his arm, pulling him behind a stack of crates. He's here, she hissed. We have to go. They scrambled away, adrenaline pumping. But it was too late. A shot rang out. Veronica cried. And right there on the crate, an image of a birth certificate appeared. Arthur Wagner, it said. And just below, another name. Illegible, but clearly not the name of his mom. Another name that would certainly haunt him. But whose was it? A. Shot rang out. Veronica cried. And right there on the crate, an image of a birth certificate appeared. Arthur Wagner, it said. And just below, another name. Illegible, but clearly not the name of his mom. Another name that would certainly haunt him. But whose was it? He didn't see what happened, didn't register it. Just Veronica's cry, sharp and piercing. He turned. She was on the ground. A small, crimson stain blooming on her chest, right where the heart would be. She looked up at him, her eyes wide, pleading. Run, she whispered, her voice a bare thread. Run, Arthur. And then, nothing. Her eyes glazed over. Her hand went limp. He was alone. Again. With another body. He couldn't think, couldn't feel. Just numb. He had to get out of there. Now. He turned to run, but a figure stepped out of the shadows. Tall, imposing, familiar. It was Luke. But it wasn't the Luke he knew. This Luke was different. His eyes were cold, hard, empty. He held a gun in his hand, the same gun that had killed. Veronica. Luke? Arthur stammered, his voice trembling. What are you doing? Luke didn't answer, just stared at him, his face expressionless. I had to, he said finally, his voice flat, devoid of emotion. She knew too much. Arthur's blood ran cold. Knew too much? About what? Luke smiled. A slow, cruel smile that sent shivers down Arthur's spine. About the plan, Arthur. About what you're really for. The plan? What plan? What the hell was going on? You think Charles Finch adopted you out of some misguided sense of duty? Luke asked, his voice dripping with sarcasm. You think he wanted an heir? That's adorable. He stepped closer, the gun never wavering. You, he continued, are a weapon, Arthur. A sleeper agent, planted in the Blackwood family, waiting for the right moment to strike. Arthur shook his head, trying to make sense of it. That's insane! I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, I think you do, Luke said, his eyes boring into Arthur's. Deep down, it's all there. Buried. programmed, waiting to be activated. He raised the gun, pointing it directly at Arthur's head. "And I," he said, his voice a chilling whisper, "am the trigger." He pulled the trigger. Ele puxou o gatilho. Click. Nada. Luke olhou para a arma, confuso. Ele apertou o gatilho de novo. Outro clique. A arma estava vazia. Arthur não conseguia respirar. Achou que ia morrer ali mesmo, no meio do nada, com seu irmão apontando uma arma descarregada para sua cabeça. "O quê?" Luke murmurou, olhando para a arma como se ela o tivesse traído. De repente, a expressão de Luke mudou. Seus olhos se arregalaram, cheios de terror. Ele jogou a arma longe como se ela estivesse pegando fogo. Eu não queria", ele disse, sua voz trêmula. "Eu não faria isso. Nunca." Arthur olhou para Luke tentando entender. O que estava acontecendo? Ele estava sendo manipulado? Tudo era uma farsa? "Eles fizeram isso comigo", Luke disse, as lágrimas escorrendo pelo seu rosto. "Eles me controlaram, me obrigaram a..." Ele não conseguiu terminar a frase. Caiu de joelhos, soluçando. Arthur se aproximou de Luke, hesitante. Ele ainda estava com medo, mas via a dor no rosto do irmão. Uma dor genuína. "Quem fez isso, Luke?" ele perguntou suavemente. "Quem te controlou?" Luke levantou a cabeça, o rosto inchado e vermelho. "Os Finches", ele disse a voz rouca. "Eles sempre estiveram por trás de tudo. Charles e depois, outros." Outros? Quem eram os outros? E o que eles queriam com Arthur? "Eles me usaram para te manipular, Arthur. Para te transformar naquilo que eles queriam. Uma arma. Uma arma. A mesma coisa que Verônica tinha dito. Ele era uma arma. Mas para quem? E contra quem? Eles queriam que você destruísse os Blackwoods", Luke disse, limpando as lágrimas. "Mas não porque se importavam com os Finches. Era muito mais do que isso." Muito mais do que uma rivalidade familiar? Do que se tratava, então? De repente, um som alto ecoou pelo cais. Um som familiar. O som de um helicóptero. Luke olhou para o céu, os olhos arregalados de pavor. "Eles estão vindo", ele disse, sua voz um sussurro. "Eles sabem que eu falhei." Quem estava vindo? Quem sabia que Luke tinha falhado? E o que aconteceria agora? Antes que Arthur pudesse responder, uma figura desceu do helicóptero, suspensa por uma corda. Uma figura vestida de preto, com o rosto coberto por uma máscara. A figura se aproximou de Luke, silenciosa e ameaçadora. Quando estava perto o suficiente, a figura estendeu a mão e tocou a testa de Luke. E então Luke caiu, sem um som. Apenas desabou no chão como uma marionete cujas cordas foram cortadas. Arthur gritou. Quem era aquela pessoa? O que tinha feito com Luke? A figura se virou para Arthur, lentamente. Removeu a máscara. Arthur ficou paralisado. Não podia ser. Era impossível. A pessoa que estava parada ali, com um sorriso frio e cruel no rosto, era ele. Ele mesmo. Mas não era ele, Arthur Wagner. Era alguém, outra coisa. Alguém que se parecia com ele, mas que era frio, calculista e completamente desprovido de emoção. Olá, Arthur. O outro Arthur disse, sua voz idêntica à de Arthur, mas com um tom gélido. Finalmente nos encontramos. Arthur não conseguia falar, não conseguia se mover. Estava em choque. Você não imaginava, não é? O outro Arthur continuou, aproximando-se. Que havia mais de um de nós, que você era apenas uma peça em um jogo muito, muito maior. Ele estendeu a mão e tocou o rosto de Arthur. Um toque frio e repulsivo. Agora, o outro Arthur disse, seus olhos brilhando com uma intensidade assustadora. É hora de você despertar. E então Arthur sentiu uma dor lancinante em sua cabeça, uma enxurrada de memórias, de pensamentos, de sentimentos que não eram seus, que eram estranhos. Alienígenas. Ele caiu de joelhos, gritando. Sua cabeça ia explodir. Quem era ele? O que estava acontecendo? Quando a dor diminuiu, Arthur olhou para o outro Arthur. Ele sabia. Ele entendia. Ele era um clone, uma cópia perfeita de Thomas Blackwood, criado pelos Finches para destruir os Blackwoods por dentro. E agora, o verdadeiro Thomas Blackwood estava vindo para tomar o seu lugar. O outro Arthur sorriu. Bem-vindo à família, Arthur, ele disse. Agora temos trabalho a fazer. Bem-vindo à família, Arthur, o outro Arthur disse. Agora temos trabalho a fazer. E então eu senti uma dor fia da puta na cabeça. Uma invasão de memórias, coisas que não eram minhas. Era bizarro. Caí de joelhos, gritando. Minha cabeça ia explodir. Quem era eu? Que merda estava rolando? Quando a dor passou, olhei para o outro Arthur. Agora eu sabia. Entendia tudo. Eu era um clone. Uma cópia do Thomas Blackwood, criado pelos Finches para detonar os Blackwoods por dentro. E agora, o Thomas Blackwood original ia tomar meu lugar. O outro Arthur sorriu. Acomode-se, Arthur, ele falou. Agora, temos a império a ser gerido. Foi então que ouvi uma voz. Uma voz fraca, sofrida. Arthur, olhei para baixo. Era Luke. Ele estava vivo, mas estava todo quebrado. Aquele clone tinha feito um estrago. Luke, aguenta aí, cara, eu disse, tentando ajudá-lo a se levantar. Não, não me toca, ele falou, com a voz falhando. Você é um deles. Não, Luke, eu tô do seu lado, acredita em mim. Ele me olhou nos olhos. Via dúvida ali, mas também via algo mais. Raiva, muita raiva. Por quê? Por que você não me contou? Ele perguntou, cuspindo as palavras. Contar o quê, Luke? Que você e eu. Ele respirou fundo com dificuldade. Que somos amantes. O mundo girou. Amantes? Eu e o Luke? Que porra é essa? Olhei pro clone. Ele estava rindo. Uma risada fria, cruel. Isso mesmo, Arthur, o clone falou. Você não lembra? Os Finches apagaram suas memórias. Mas você e Luke, vocês sempre foram próximos, íntimos. Imagens começaram a invadir minha mente. Flashes de momentos quentes, intensos, com o Luke. Podia ser verdade. Não podia. Isso é mentira, eu gritei. É tudo mentira. Mas no fundo, eu sabia. Era verdade. Por isso a Verônica tinha tanto medo. Por isso ela tentou me proteger. Eu e o Luke éramos amantes, e os Finches sabiam, e tinham usado isso contra nós. Luke me olhou com desprezo. Eu te amava, Arthur, ele falou. Mas você me traiu. Ele pegou uma faca, pequena, mas afiada, e apontou para mim. Eu devia ter te matado quando tive a chance, ele disse, com os olhos cheios de ódio. Luke, por favor, não faz isso. Eu não sou quem você pensa. Ele não me ouviu. Avançou para cima de mim, e então tudo ficou preto. Luke com a faca na mão. Aquilo não podia estar acontecendo. A gente juntos. Era demais para processar. Eu te amava, Arthur. Ele gritou, a voz embargada. Mas você é igual a eles. A faca brilhou na luz fraca do cais. Ele ia me atacar. Eu ia morrer ali, traído por quem? Porque eu amava. Então, uma sombra caiu sobre nós. O clone de Blackwood. Ele agarrou Luke por trás, imobilizando seus braços, já cheia de joguinhos. Arthur. Desse jeito. Ele disse, a voz gélida. É hora de terminarmos isso. Ele tirou uma arma do bolso. Uma arma de verdade. Não! Eu gritei, tentando me soltar. Mas era inútil. Eu estava preso. O clone apontou a arma para a cabeça de Luke. Adeus, amante. Ele sussurrou. E então ele puxou o gatilho. Mas o tiro não veio. Em vez disso, o clone cambaleou. Olhou para baixo surpreso. Uma faca cravada em seu peito. Eu tinha jogado a faca. No último segundo, o clone caiu no chão, morto. Os olhos marejados. Você me salvou, ele disse, a voz fraca. Eu corri até ele, ajoelhando ao seu lado. Eu sempre vou te salvar, Luke, eu disse. Eu te amo. E então eu beijei. Um beijo desesperado, apaixonado. Um beijo de despedida. Porque eu sabia. Sabia que não tinha como escapar. Blackwood estava vindo. E ele não ia ter piedade. Vai, eu disse, empurrando Luke para longe. Corre, se esconde. Vive. Ele hesitou, mas sabia que eu estava certo. Ele se levantou e correu, desaparecendo nas sombras do cais. Eu fiquei ali, sozinho, esperando. E então ele apareceu. Thomas Blackwood. Imponente, frio, calculista. A minha cópia, só que mais velho, mais experiente. Arthur, ele disse a voz suave. Que decepção você se tornou. Eu não disse nada. Apenas o encarei. Os Finches te criaram para me destruir, ele continuou. Mas falharam. E agora você vai pagar o preço. Ele levantou a arma. Eu fechei os olhos e esperei. Mas o tiro não veio. Em vez disso, ouvi um grito. Um grito de dor. Abri os olhos. Blackwood estava no chão, uma flecha cravada em seu ombro. No topo de um dos prédios do cais, uma figura surgiu, com um arco na mão. Verônica. Ela estava viva. Ela apontou o arco para mim, sorrindo. Essa é por você, Arthur, ela gritou. E então, tudo ficou preto. Mas a história não acaba aqui. Quem era aquela pessoa? O que ela queria com Arthur? E, principalmente, quem é o pai de Arthur? Ei, você! A história te pegou de jeito, né? Então escuta essa. Se inscreva agora no canal. Sim, agora. Se você não fizer isso, vai perder a continuação dessa saga incrível. Esmague esse like. Mostre para o algoritmo quem manda e ajude o canal a crescer. É rapidinho, vai! Comenta! Diga o que achou desse final. Compartilhe suas teorias. Vamos fazer acontecer. Compartilhe imediatamente com 5 amigos. Eles precisam conhecer essa história. Não seja egoísta. Você precisa fazer isso. Só os verdadeiros fãs demonstram seu apoio assim. Não perca tempo. A próxima parte está quase saindo. Mas só se você fizer sua parte. Vamos lá!